my first tour was in Somalia, so I was quite young at the time. And then after that, it was Bosnia, and then Afghanistan. So, yeah, varied regions of the world, different circumstances, and different age. So, of each experience, so everything was different every time. You know, Somalia was, we were sent. There wasn't a big threat to Canada, but the country asked us to go. The government made the decision, and that's our job. So if they feel it necessary, then we go. That's what we signed up to do. I wasn't one to question all kinds of reasons or anything like that. It's just I knew that when I signed up, it was unlimited liability, and I would do what the government asked me to do.
Well, with Remembrance Day coming up, again, you know, people look back, and for a while, when Canada's military involvement in world affairs was really waning, I always felt that the Remembrance Day ceremonies kind of went that way as well. And now, ever since, like you said, Bosnia and Afghanistan, and where Canadian soldiers have, quite frankly, fought and died. We have the Highway of Heroes. You're seeing a lot more patriotism, I think, or conspicuous patriotism from Canadians. Is that something you found?
Absolutely. The response by Canadians was fantastic, overwhelming, but it's something that I knew was always there. It's when before Afghanistan and there wasn't much going on except for peacekeeping, when you talk to your neighbors and stuff, everybody likes the military. Everybody's proud of Canada's military. You know, what it came down to was political will. Who was in charge at the time, what was their philosophy towards the military, how much did they want to spend on the military. That really determined what the papers would write. So the papers and the politics of it was one thing, but the grassroots pride and ownership of military was quite a bit different. So even though we were underfunded and it seemed like Canada's military was lacking, at least I knew that the regular people still appreciated it and appreciated the soldiers as well.
Do you find with that newfound pride of Canadians that Remembrance Day has maybe taken on a different meaning for a new generation?
Well, I think it has, and I think it's brought it closer to home. It's brought Remembrance Day current, relevant, which it wasn't in the past to a lot of people because it's the time, World War I, II, Korea. People forget, and it seems almost less important to the average person because it's so long ago, and it's not their fault. It's just that's the way history is, and time does that. So for sure, Remembrance Day today is more relevant and current, and the younger people appreciate it more.
Do you find, as a veteran of the Canadian Forces, who have always been fairly well regarded in the world stage, do you find that regard has even gone up in the last few years, or where do you think it is in regards to how we're looked at from other countries looking at us and our military?
Well, I think that we are definitely looked at as a lot stronger of a country now. I think we have a greater say on the world stage, whether it be, whatever G20, G8, whatever it is. Our foreign policy is a lot stronger now. I think when we talk, people listen. Whereas before, when we had a underfunded military, we were thought of as a bit of a joke. So maybe our word wasn't as strong as it is today. And that goes back to the policies of the government at the time. So if you have a strong foreign policy, you have a strong military, you have a strong country.
You see a lot of people now on the backs of their cars, trucks, they've got the yellow ribbon, "We support our troops." How big a deal is that to you?
Huge deal. That means more to soldiers than you can imagine. Especially if you lived back in the 2000s in the military, the 90s. It was the decade of darkness, it was called. So now that people are actually, not ashamed to have bumper stickers on and stuff, and they show their pride for the military outright, and you get stopped in the street, people thanking you, especially during the war when we were in Afghanistan, that goes a long way to keeping you positive and happy. And this pride in the military is really brought to the forefront Canada's citizens' pride in their country. So not only do we rally around the Stanley Cup or the Olympics, people show their pride for the country every single day, and that's a big deal.
Well, you talked about the Stanley Cup. You go to a hockey game in Calgary or a football game, and if they ever bring in the military, the crowd stands every time.
Absolutely, and I think that's what people want to do. That's something that was missing in this country for years. It was always kept close to home. People would talk about it in their kitchens and stuff, but to outwardly show it at events like that, that's what this country needs. And pride in Canada is very important.
So you wear the poppy, November 11th, pretty much upon us. I know what Remembrance Day means to me. What does it mean to you?
Well, it's a time for me to reflect back on the sacrifices of soldiers and their families. And I think of back in the World War I and II when all the towns, all the men were gone. I think of the Dunlop family in Frank, Alberta. I drove by their memorial a couple times because I go down to the Crow's Nest Pass quite a bit, and I always wondered what that memorial was for. I knew it was World War I or II. So I read up on it, and it is the Dunlop family whose father and 3 sons went to war in World War I, and the father was the only one to come home. All 3 sons died overseas. So I think of their sacrifice. I think of the sacrifice of their family. I think of what those kids, missed out on getting married, missed out on having children of their own, all for a good cause, a cause they thought was the right thing to do. And I think we have to appreciate that. I think of the people I knew in Afghanistan that died. I think of the young guys. I think of, the same thing. All the things they miss out on. They're going to miss out on getting married. They're going to miss out on having children. I think of the married people that were over there that, will never see their kids again. Their kids are growing up without a father or without a mother. And I also think about the families back home because, that's something that can't be forgotten or underestimated. Whether my wife at home, if she hears the doorbell ring, and doesn't expect anybody to show up, is she thinking, the Padre with the military people to bring her bad news? So that's a horrible thing to go through for 7 months, 6 months, a year, however long a soldier's gone. They have to deal with that. They have to deal with the questions from the younger children, etc. So, remembrance is a lot more than just remembering the fallen. There's a lot more to it.